Welcome to another episode of From a Woman to a Leader, a podcast dedicated to discussing women's unique challenges in the tech industry. I'm your host, Limor Bergman-Gross, and in this episode, I had a pleasure speaking with Anika Gersbeck. Anika is a seasoned senior software engineer with over 2 decades of experience in the industry. She emphasizes how important it is to see senior software engineers as architects, not just as implementers, and the importance of having senior engineers driving the project and stakeholder collaboration. She also emphasizes the importance of diversity in that field and share personal stories about her challenges with microaggressions and biases as a woman of color in the tech industry. If you're a woman in engineering, especially a software engineer, I welcome you to listen to this episode. Hi, Anika. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hello. Thank you.
Love your green background. We talked about it earlier.
Yeah,
And
it's a mural. I love green.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And Anika, for those of you who don't know, she's a senior software engineer, and we'll start by talking about what actually your role means, because you mentioned that it's important being involved early as an architect rather than just an implementer in software projects. So can you expand a little bit about this mindset and why it's so crucial for achieving stakeholder goals?
Sure. I'm a senior software engineer. I've been a software engineer for about 20 years now. And I'm a professional problem solver. I build solutions, interfaces, applications, small, large, with my team, and it's a team effort. And I think that the conception of my role, both externally and internally, sometimes with people that I work with, is that someone else in a closed door room develops the perfect solution, and then an engineer takes that and builds it. But that could be the way that it happens, but it's just not an optimal situation, because a lot of the time, the people who, the stakeholders, people who need the solution, they have an idea of what the solution is, but it's not necessarily concrete, or it's not necessarily going to return that it won't have that ROI that we're looking for, or fit the budget, or because there's information that I have and information that they have. It's better that we are combined and we're having a dialogue about the desired goals, so that we can build it together. I liken it to like, let's say you want to build a house. You have a plot of land and you have an idea of what the house will look like and how many rooms, but you don't have a blueprint. You could go to a contractor, which would require a blueprint, or you can go to an architect, which would establish a dialogue with you, and together you develop a blueprint. Which path should you take? If you go to a contractor, the contractor is going to basically get the information from you about exactly what to build. And then, maybe that'll be a great solution. It may not be. And based on my experience, it's better to have that relationship with the expert who knows the references that you're using, and knows about your budget and knows about the technology that would be required, and to have that back and forth with them, the end product is just better objectively and on every measure. And I think that this is affecting like me personally, because I show up every day at work as an architect, but I'm not always treated that way. I'm treated more like a contractor sometimes. And I think that's interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I think that it's also very demoralizing when someone sees you as like just a doer. Oh, you don't have to think about it too much. Just do what I say or do what someone else said, versus actually you have a say. Because when you have a conversation and you build a solution together, then you're actually part of something. You're not just executing someone else's idea.
Right. I think that there's always a value add. Um, and also, I will say that it is my role to be there in the planning stage. That is, if that doesn't happen, then we're sort of cheating the company or the context of value, because uh, frankly, I'm not paid like a contractor. I'm paid like an architect. And so if I'm not being utilized as such, it's sort of like leaving value on the table. And so I think that that's interesting that it still occurs sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And why do you think that happens, by the way? That you're treated as the implementer versus the architect?
I think that it's, several things. There's sometimes there's, a situation where there isn't a lot of time. That frequently happens. And there's a quick decision that's made. And, any kind of, what I personally have experienced is that when this is happening, I will speak up. I'll talk about it. Or if I learn about an initiative that's sort of, within a specific group of people that intersects with my domain that I know a lot about, I'll try to learn about it as much as I can, get the details that I can, and then try to identify those risks, even though I haven't necessarily been invited in. The reasons why I haven't been invited in, it could be anything. I don't exactly know, but sometimes I do being invited in. And sometimes I do have that architect sort of relationship early on in the planning. But what I've experienced in my career, in addition to, sort of the gamut, is like a withdrawal of, sort of, well, no, let me stop for a minute.
Cut
I'm
here.
not sure how to, yeah, sorry. What I'm trying to get at is, I have this cycle. Typically, this isn't just at one place that I've worked at. This is at many, not all, but many of the places that I've worked at, where I will start on the scene and have a quick ramp up period, and commit code and build something and join the team in a big effort, and it'll be greatly appreciated. Then, um, maybe there's a moment of critical thinking, or, because I will give my opinion. I'll give my professional opinion. I will be open about the need to validate assumptions. I will play devil's advocate. And I see all of this as part of my role, a big part of my role as an engineer, because I, um, I if I don't examine the assumptions that we're operating on, if I don't, you know, get a good understanding of the terrain of the problem and that kind of thing, then I feel like, I might miss something, or we might spend a lot of money on a solution that doesn't work, or we might build something that doesn't have the impact that we expected. It's kind of the same thing, but but I it's part of my job for that reason. We want to deliver on the goals that we set out. And this is part of the role, but somehow when I am bold, I'm going to use that word. When I raise an objection that puts us, kind of like sets us on a different path, that, maybe we've sort of invested some money in this other path, but now we need to go this direction, we need to correct. Some people really appreciate that, but some people really don't like that. And I think that this isn't behavior that is outside of my role. I think that if anyone would look at that objectively and probably would agree. But when I do it, it's a problem. It's seen as a problem. It's seen as like troublemaking and, difficulty, being difficult. And I've thought about this. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this because, like I said, I'm a professional problem solver. And I like to get to the bottom. I like to solve my own problems, and I like to solve, institutional problems, and or at least try to think about them. And I think that it is part of like this historical context that we are all in worldwide, but especially here in the United States especially for me, because of my ancestry and the people who are, in my context, my teams, my organizations that I'm working within. We're all in this context, and it's not even just work, it's just life. I think what's underpinning this part of it, I think that there's bias going on. It's hard to find the right word. I think that people talk about racism, and I think that definitely racism is alive and in effect. For me, sometimes it's racism, but sometimes it's not that concrete. I think that sometimes it's not even necessarily like as firm as bias, or like the firmness I assign to that word, bias. Sometimes I think it's just friction. And I think that it's based off of like this really old dynamic that we've never addressed. And it's very difficult to address. And what I mean by that is being critical, being bold, playing devil's advocate, pointing us to the right solution, even though we might have spent money in somewhere else, that kind of thing. That behavior is less palatable when it comes from me. I think because in the back of our minds, we're still kind of holding on to the danger that's assigned when someone like me is bold, is critical. Because historically, if a Black person looked at a white person or spoke to a white person as though they were socially equal. Just that action could have cost their life. That Black person could have been killed. And that white person, felt threatened. Maybe the Black person had a more successful business. And that was just this threat that could not be, tolerated. And not only do you have more money or whatever, but you think you're better, but you're not, that dynamic. I'm not saying that that's happening to me, but what I'm saying is that I have to deal with the residue of that. I have to deal with that being in the air all the time. No matter where I work, no matter where I shop for groceries, that's just a part of my life. And, this has affected the baseline residue affecting, whether or not people feel threatened by me when I'm just working, when I'm being critical, when I'm just operating in the world, as in my body. That's definitely something that I've encountered in these last 20 years that's affected the way that people see my role, and see my work. And it's definitely something I've thought about quite a bit. The effect of this. So there's some tropes I think people might know about. There's angry Black woman. I think that angry Black woman, that trope is, yeah, I think it might be underpinned by media depictions of Black women as being literally angry. Um, and But I also think that there's a connection to this background bias friction, where if you are considering yourself to be on equal footing with your peers and giving your opinion, and working professionally and being powerful in your role, that gets twisted into, oh, you're angry. And I definitely deal with that. I think the most in my working life. That is not a constant, but that is pervasive in my working life. And so I think that might have something to do with whether or not, people are eager to interface with me. The people who interface with me, though, I will say this, they love my work. They love my work. My work has been the subject of like emails. They'll announce, oh, look at this great. It's awesome. We can now do this and ABCD. But unfortunately, what I've experienced is that I get disconnected from my work. I get distanced, or my role in the work is obscured, or that's one of the things that I've had to grapple with throughout my career. Microaggressions, just, and I think it all kind of boils down to, that connection to feeling threatened just by, the two or three or whatever of us interfacing, and I am not cowed. And I think that cowed position was one of survival for a long time. And it just became part of the background of our connection to each other. The way that I operate in my life, I will not be cowed. It's true. I still will give my opinion, even though I am rendered invisible by people who might be threatened by it. I'm cut off from my actual work, or people come away not knowing, that it was me that did that. Largely. And so this is like something that I grapple with quite quite often. And this is also the reason why part of the reason why I'm hoping to move more in an entrepreneurial direction, because then I get to define my own context. At least, right? I'd have more control over it. I think there's no way for me to escape this. There's no place to go, but I think if I can't work in a vacuum. I can't work in a place where, there's this utopic situation, unless it's very small and the people there are, unique. But typically, no matter where I go, this is the landscape. This is part of my life. And so to mitigate it, in part, um, I was thinking maybe I'll take an entrepreneurial path and have a little bit more control over that.
Yeah, and first of all, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you have to go through that for so many years. I mean, I'm sure that it has a huge emotional toll to always be kind of disconnect, as you said, like disconnected from your work, or be considered as difficult or angry, even though you're just trying to make your stand and say what you think, which is what you should do, right? I mean, this is what expected of you at your role. And by the way, I heard something similar about entrepreneurial journey from another guest that I hosted here, Julissa Hermason. And she wrote a book about actual Latina women, not Black, but Latina women. And she mentioned something similar. She mentioned that a lot of Latina women, they choose to start their own business because they're not giving the opportunity or what they should get as an employee. And on one hand, that's great to become an entrepreneur. On the other hand, it makes me a little bit sad because, like, it shouldn't be the only way.
Oh, I agree. I give props to her. It shouldn't be the only way, but I give props to her for carving out that path, and more defining that path with the book. I haven't read it. I need to pick it up. Um, I I get it. That's definitely the perspective that I'm coming from. In terms of, how we can improve the situation for everyone, and move in a more positive direction. I wish that I had more tools, but really the only tool that I can propose here, can bring up here that I know of, is finding your 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 panel of allies, your sponsors, the people who will see you and connect you to your work, and will advocate for you when you're not there, and will recognize your role in the work that you've done and the importance of it and the value of your contributions. You have to find those people. That's the only advice that I have developed that's effective. I think that there's a lot of people doing really good work in DEI, and clarifying and like, building these courses and educating people. I think that the disconnect is, or there's not necessarily an incentive to cure for the inequities that are out there. There's no incentive, unfortunately. When you think of human resources, or like a DEI, maybe you work for a company that has a DEI, department. I don't even know what that's like. I probably have worked at a company that had one, but in terms of like on the ground help, I have little experience with that. Human resources is there to protect the company. They're not there to, make sure that you don't face microaggressions. They may not know about microaggressions. There's really no incentive for them to know about microaggressions because microaggressions don't affect the company. That they want to, obviously, if someone is sexually harassing someone at the workplace, they're going to step in as they should. But beyond that, I don't know how effective the current set of incentives are. I haven't seen any kind of connection to that. I don't, and this isn't just the places that I've worked at, but as I've said, I've thought about this topic quite a bit and explored this topic. And I've tried to find resources. I've tried to find research, white papers about this. I've read about this and tried to educate myself about this. And the state of it is there are people that are working towards this, like it's a discipline. People are getting PhDs in inclusion studies, probably, right? Connecting that to my context personally at work, there needs to be a bridge. There is no bridge that I've come across to bridge those two things yet. And I think that there's will. I don't think that people are, willfully, racist or biased, or I certainly hope not. But I don't think that I don't see any evidence of that. I don't think that people are awful. I think that it's just a blind spot. It's a blind spot that there's no real strong incentive to make more visible or to make more observable. I've been a Black woman my whole life. I've been an engineer for 20 years. I have worked with other female engineers less than the fingers that I have on my hand.
Yeah, we don't
Why
have
is
enough.
that?
We don't have enough. Yeah. We don't
We
have
don't
enough
promote.
women in engineering, and we have even less women of color and even less Black women in engineering. And I mean, what I've seen is several things. First of all, there has to be the intent, meaning the intent to want to have a diverse culture, like to have a diverse kind of employees in the company, and an inclusive culture. There has to be a will. Like in one of the companies I worked for, my manager deliberately looked for female managers to report to him. So there was an intention. There has to be a will, an intention to want to change, not just for women, by the way, but in general, to have a diverse culture, to have a diverse diverse employees, and to build an inclusive culture. And if there is a will, there is a way. So they can do many things like ERGs, and I think it's not enough just to say, hey, we're doing DEI in general. It has to be more intentional and more specific, because maybe like white women are not facing the same things as Black women. Obviously, it depends on the size of the company, but it could be even more granular than just, okay, women, for example. It could be Black women and Black women, in specific roles. First of all, I think the tribe, having a tribe like of women like you, really helps to understand that you are not alone, right? And really being willing to change things, to get feedback, and change. Like if there are microaggressions, as you said, a lot of times those things are not happening from bad intentions. They're happening from biases. People are not aware of what they're saying or doing. It's really hurtful. As long as there is a will and companies want to get that feedback and do something about it, I think change can happen.
I agree. Change can definitely happen. I also want to, sort of broaden the groups that we're talking about here, because I think that that residue of that power dynamic that we're all sort of still, and it's not just the United States, that power dynamic due to, colonialism, or due to exoticizing, groups of people, or, it's all over, it's everywhere, it's pervasive. And it's not necessarily like in one direction or within one group of people, or the other group of people are literally always on the brunt end of it. I think that it's just a part of our understanding of the world. My daughter, when she was 2 years old, my children are mixed race. My husband says he's white, and I am Black. I say I'm Black. And my daughter, when she was 2 years old, knew that it was better to be white than to be Black. She wanted the better treatment, and she could see that even as a very, very small child. And my child, there's colorism, darker, lighter, there's a perceived difference even for children of color, even Black children. There was a famous study that was repeated, I think a couple times, where young children, 5, 4, were presented with a Black doll and a white doll, and they were told were asked which one, is the nice doll, which doll is the dumb doll. And even though they were the same complexion as the doll, they would still say the Black doll is the dumb doll, the white doll is the nice doll, is the pretty doll. And this is just in the ether, and we're still dealing with it. There's all sorts of you know situations that I've never had to navigate that are, necessarily tied up explicitly under DEI. I've never been trans in the workplace. I've never been deaf in the workplace. I would imagine that there's a whole world of microaggressions, issues that are, that people are navigating that I don't know about. This is a broad and deep issue, and this is not my area. I'm an engineer, and I wish I had more insights that would nudge this in a more positive direction for everyone. I wish I did.
Before we end our call, I would just say that just by being an engineer, you set an example for the next generation, just by who you are and what you do. Set an example for the girls out there that are looking at you and seeing that this is possible to be an engineer, to be a good engineer, and still be a Black woman. So just by that, thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you.
And thank you so much for being here and being so open about it. Before we end, I wanted to kind of ask you if you have any words of wisdom or any tips or any advice that you would like to give other women out there, whether they're Black or not. What would you tell them?
Absolutely. I would say that Your time is your own, and you find the area, the activity, you find what feeds you, and do that, because your work life is a small piece of your life, and if you invest and spend your energy and focus all in that bucket, um it's going to stress you out. And if you get stressed out and you get sick or whatever, they're just going to find someone else to replace you. It's not necessary. I'm not saying that the world is cold. I'm saying that you find what feeds you and focus on you and feed that, and go deep on that, and focus on yourself. It might sound selfish, but be selfish and do that. Try to lower your stress, center yourself, advocate for yourself, because your family, your coworkers, your friends are important, but you're number one. Focus on you and develop yourself. That's what I would
This
say.
is a wonderful, wonderful advice, and it is not selfish at all. Because when you put yourself first, when you take care of yourself, others around you also benefit from that, both in your personal life and also at work. So thank you so much for those words of wisdom. This is so
Can I say
important.
one more thing?
Of course.
Sponsor someone. If you see someone who is just amazing, who's given that idea that just completely expanded the impact of what you're doing, or gave you that insight that was so key, promote them, lift them up, talk them up, sponsor someone, and learn from them and work with them, and I don't know how clearly people know about sponsorship. I don't know if people know what it is or how it's different from mentorship, but take a look at that. Look in that area. Sponsorship is so important, and everybody could be a sponsor.
Absolutely. Sponsorship is very, very important, and it what helped me progress in my career. So it's definitely critical, especially for women, and even more so, I would say, for Black women and women of color. So thank you so much for mentioning that. And actually, my best sponsors were black. I cannot talk today. My best sponsors were white men, actually. So they don't have to be like you or look like you to be our sponsors. Thank you so much, Anika. It's been such a pleasure having you here today.
Thank you.
Before we go, how can people contact you?
I have a LinkedIn account under Anika Gersbeck, and I am due to launch my business soon, but
Yay!
I'm looking forward to finding the time to get that over the finish line. But yeah, that look for that. I'm still working very hard on opening that door to entrepreneurship for myself.
Perfect. So Anika, I will definitely put your LinkedIn URL on the show notes. And if you have the business info, I'll put it too. And if not, I'll have to invite you again to talk about your new business.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of From a Woman to a Leader. Stay tuned for the next episode next week. I have a pleasure speaking with Bumi Odumeid, and she's a Senior Director of Engineering. Bumi shares her passion for technology, how she leveraged it, and her drive for continuous growth to overcome early challenges and rise to the top of her field. You'll gain insight into how embracing change and lifelong learning can transform your own career trajectory. So don't forget to tune in next week for the empowering story of Bhumi that could ignite your path to success.